thanks for joining us today. So surviving disasters with on-demand failover is today's presentation, DRAS and the failover revolution. Hopefully that is the presentation that you've registered for. So thanks for being here and thanks for spending some time out of your day to be here for this. So my name is Carla Federico. I'm the Director of Marketing here at InfraScale, and I'm sharing all of my contact info with you here because I would love to hear from you, even after the presentation, any feedback or any information that you would like to hear that maybe doesn't get covered today. I'd love to speak with you, so please do reach out. And then a couple of housekeeping items here along the bottom. I frequently get asked, is there a recording of this webinar? So yes, this replay video I am recording. It will be posted at infrascale.com/webinars within 24 hours. And then I also get asked, can I have a copy of the slides? So yes, you can have a copy of the slides. They are already available for you. They're in the handout section. So please just go to the handout section, grab a copy of those slides there. And then I also am asking to please join the conversation. Use the hashtag DRAS on Twitter. You can also follow us at InfraScale. And then, of course, today during the presentation, if you have any questions, comments, anything that you'd like to add, please use that question tool to post throughout the webinar. All right, so with that, let's take a look at the agenda for today. So first, we're going to look at some of those key trends in BCDR in 2016. We're going to talk about, of course, the subject for today, how to survive disasters with on-demand failover. And then we're also going to talk about choosing a BCDR solution and just discuss some of the pros and cons and just things that you should be looking for. All right, so first we kind of want to look at some of the trends in disaster recovery and business continuity and just look at what's really going on today. Because things change so quickly, globalization has really created a highly competitive market for both big and small businesses. So it's really competitive these days. And because of that, no businesses can afford to lose out on opportunities. You're really going to be losing revenue for unplanned outages. So really the problem is that every single company relies on data and systems uptime for survival. And with that, every organization's IT system has to be up and running at all times. And so that's why it's really important to implement a proper business continuity and disaster recovery plan. It's really a must for every organization, and it's just crucial for your business. Now, I think we all here, if you've joined today's webinar, we already understand that, right? You know how important it is. You know what is at risk if you don't have a proper solution in place. But then the question becomes, well, what is that proper solution? What types of things do I need to be looking at to put that in place? How much do I need to spend on it? Just all these questions that come up on how to really get a proper, effective, and affordable solution in place. So with that, looking at some of the costs here, this is the cost per hour of downtime. So this is really what you have at risk if you don't have that proper solution in place. Now these are calculated averages for cost per hour. Small companies lost over $8,000 per hour. Large organizations had losses of over $600,000 per hour. So this is something that you need to consider if you haven't already. How many of you on the line know the cost per hour of downtime for your business? And if you do know it, what is that figure? What would it cost you? Now consider what happens when all of your systems go down. So you lose communication with all of your business partners, your customers, your employees, et cetera, et cetera. How are you currently dealing with this type of situation? And then more importantly, that unplanned outages, what is it going to cost in terms of lost opportunities? Now let's see, Stephen says, I'm considering becoming a reseller. I have clients that are often looking for a DRAS solution, often government sector. Great, Stephen, we're definitely going to get into a little bit more of those details with verticals and whatnot. what are you currently using for disaster recovery, and if that's the case? Okay, so again, aside from these costs here, now any type of unforeseen situation can occur. It's of course, you know, the usual technical issues with an IT system that they face on an everyday basis. There are several other you know, natural disasters, hurricanes, storms, earthquakes, and that of course can disrupt your business functions as well. But what if something happened that would shut down your business for an entire day? Could you even afford that, or would it completely put you out of business? So with that thought in mind, our mission at InfraScale, we're a DRAS company. We use the cloud to eradicate downtime. That's our entire mission, is to eradicate downtime. Pretty simple. And what I added here, it's not just our mission, but hopefully it's your mission as well. And hopefully that's why you joined this webinar today, is that you're here because, of course, none of us can eliminate the causes of downtime, but what we do is aim to eliminate the pain that any business experiences in the event of an outage. And so just to be really clear, when I talk about DRAS or DR as a service, I just simply want to define that so that we're all on the same page. I really mean the ability to fail over an entire business environment, not just file and folder data, to a secondary location in the case of a disaster. So with DRAS lets you quickly reboot and virtualize servers, applications, and keep all of those end users productive while the root cause of the outage is fixed. So let's take a look at some of these trends, because what we've just discussed is we already understand what the problem is. We understand the risks. We know if we don't know exactly what it costs, we still know that it's detrimental to a business. So why hasn't everyone adopted a DRAS solution then? Well, in a survey of companies ranging from 100 to 5,000 employees, most of these businesses said that they couldn't fail over to a second location. Only 10% of companies said that they could fail over within 15 minutes. And you do have access to that survey that I just mentioned in the handout section of the software. So if you just go to the handouts, you'll see a couple of different pieces of information that I shared with you today. You have the slides for today. You also have a copy of this survey that this data came from, and then it also provided a ransomware ebook, since that is a very hot topic these days. I thought that you guys would be interested in that as well, so I included that. Okay, but so the survey was really looking at barriers to adoption. Why haven't we all adopted a proper DR as a service solution? So the 36% of the respondents, the top response was simply, it's too expensive, I can't afford it. And Brian just said, yeah, customers are cheap. So that is a misperceived barrier to adoption, which I am going to talk about later in this presentation. So an affordable, effective solution is a reality today. Now maybe we just don't know about it yet, so that's probably why we're all here today, right? But the next barriers to adoption are simply insufficient IT resources, compatibility and complexity issues. So those are the next highest barriers. Now, traditional DR always involves trade-offs, and so that's why we see those barriers to adoption. Now, of course, here at the bottom, we're looking at cost versus RTO, recovery time objective. So RTO, recovery time objective, and RPO, recovery point objective, are very important aspects to look at. Is everyone clear on the differences between RTO and RPO and what they both mean? Let me know in the question tool. So on one end of the spectrum here, these are trade-offs between cost and RTO. So you have on-site, off-site tape backup, which of course is very cheap, but it takes days to recover. It would put a business out of business. Being down for 24 hours or more is definitely going to be detrimental to business. Cloud backup, appliance backup, we really see that all options, as you move towards a higher cost, of course, is going to bring that recovery time down. So cold site, warm site, hot site DR. Now, on the very other end of the spectrum, hot site DR, of course, you have the primary and secondary systems running simultaneously. So that data is mirrored to the secondary server in real time. Now, you're going to have a recovery time of mere seconds. So it's very fast, but it's really expensive. So you always have to make a trade-off between speed and cost. But what you really want and what you really need is here in the top left. You want affordable, on-demand failover. If you're not there already. Are any of you there already? Let me know in the question tool, because I'd love to know how. I'd love to know what you're using. But essentially, this top left is essentially DRaaS, Disaster Recovery as a Service, letting you leverage a backup appliance or the cloud to quickly reboot and virtualize your VMs and keep all of those end users productive while the root cause of the outage gets fixed. Brian says yes with V. Recovery time, what's your RTO there? And can you say virtualize those environments in, we'll just say 15 minutes? And we'll talk more about that, of course. We'll move on here for now. Okay, so what we've found with these last couple of slides is that only the biggest companies can afford to fail over their entire systems. It leaves 68% of companies using mere backup as a disaster recovery solution. And backup does not make a disaster recovery solution. It really doesn't. When you need those critical systems, you need to be up and running immediately. Okay, let's look at some of the top causes of downtime. So on the left, you see the pervasiveness of downtime. And 91% of data center managers surveyed experienced some downtime in the last 2 years. But 47% experienced an outage this year. So nearly half. Now on the right, you see the top causes of downtime. We can see that hardware failure and human error accounted for about 3/4 of all downtime. And then software failure, about 18%. And natural disasters account for really less than 5% of all downtime. But we still need to look at those micro and macro disasters, so the small scale and large scale, anything from a simple human error to those floods, hurricanes, tornadoes. Okay, so now let's get into really the detail of the presentation. I think some of those trends that we just looked at we're mostly familiar with. It's just a great reminder of where we're at today before we get into how you can actually use on-demand failover and have a proper, effective, and affordable solution to survive any disaster that your business or your customer might encounter. Okay, so the first way is to avoid reserved infrastructure. And this is what we see a lot of businesses using these days. So this is why. What we just looked at, we saw the trade-offs, that some solutions can achieve the recovery time that we want, but they just simply don't achieve the cost that we want. They're far too expensive. And this is why. So here on the left, you see how most DR solutions are architected. You have a production site that replicates to a failover site, and then because of the bandwidth, the people, and the software involved, it can cost up to 3 times as much to set up a proper DR solution. Does this sound familiar to any of you? Is this how your solution's set up right now? Then on top of the expense to implement, it's complex to test and to use. It's vulnerable to hackers because it doesn't have security built right in. And then you have those RTO, RPO trade-offs that we just looked at. So you need to avoid reserved infrastructure, but you still want to get on-demand failover. Well, you can do that at the price point of most appliance backup solutions. And we'll get to that in just a minute when it comes to cost and pricing. We'll talk about that. Stephen says, I agree. Some now recognizing backup, recover, just not adequate when really bad things happen. Exactly, Stephen. If you have a backup, how long is it going to take you to get those systems back up and running? And if you have backup of files and folders, what are you going to do about your servers and applications when those go down? Okay, that brings us to number 2, the second way to survive disasters. Avoid hardware-heavy solutions. Now, this is also going to sound familiar to a lot of you. So on the left is really the old way of doing things. So you want to forget those hardware-heavy solutions. They should be avoided because you can easily find a vendor with cloud spillover. Are any of you using cloud spillover today? Are any of you familiar with cloud spillover today? Let me know in the question tool. Brian so far says no. Also says no. So I see a couple of no's here. So and Stephen says limited. All right, so let's go through this. On the left here, you see again where more space is more appliance. You buy an appliance, you fill it up as your data grows, and then you have to buy another one, and you fill it up again. And you continue this cycle where you buy an appliance, fill it up, because data is continuously growing, and that means that more space equals more appliance. Look at how costly that gets. That's a really expensive solution. But what if you could have the last hardware appliance that you'd ever need, like you see on the right? A slim rack mount unit, you just see a 1U unit. You could send it 1 terabyte or you could send it 100 terabytes. Well, we do that by utilizing cloud spillover technology. So we're intelligently spilling data over from the device to the cloud. So all based on policies that you set, based on the age and the value of your data. And that's what we should be doing. Are any of you utilizing cloud spillover now? And if not, any more questions about cloud spillover? I'm just really curious to hear from you guys. And just to share really quickly before we move on to the next slide, Gartner actually mentioned InfraSkill. When they wrote about us in their Cool Vendor report in 2015, they said InfraSkill says that when you need more space, get a bigger cloud, not a bigger appliance. And I'll actually share that Cool Vendor report with you guys as well. I didn't put that in the handouts today, but I'll make sure to email it to you. Okay, so that brings us to the third way to survive disasters is having your solution designed end-to-end. You really need complete coverage. So you want a solution that can back up any device, including servers, both physical and virtual, desktops, laptops, mobile devices, even including geolocate, remote wipe, geofencing. You need support for any OS, right? So not just Windows, but Linux, Unix, VMware, Hyper-V, all those mixed environments. Things get more complex, support for that. Deployment in any form. So this really means the type of form factor, including physical appliances, virtual appliances, or agent-level backups. And you want to be able to store in any cloud. So you should have the flexibility of storing your data in any cloud. So it could be the vendor's cloud, your own private cloud, or popular third-party clouds like Amazon Web Services or Windows Azure. You also want to be able to recover anything. Recover anything from an entire mailbox server down to the mailbox level, and search and preview for a message or a file for recovery if needed. And then you need to be able to boot anywhere. So we discussed this on an earlier slide. You really want the ability to boot on the appliance or boot in the cloud and fail back any systems. So how many of you currently have a solution that is designed end-to-end in this way? And earlier we had some of you commenting on using Veeam or using Commvault or some of the other vendors that you're using at the moment. Is it completely end-to-end, covering over 100 different versions of operating systems, being able to fail back all those systems as well, not just including VMware, but Hyper-V, so you have the ability to support both physical and virtual servers, as well as endpoints. Brian is saying 2013 not supported anymore. Okay. 2003. I read that incorrectly. And Stephen says nope. Okay, so just to be clear on everything that we've designed, InfraScale supports an end-to-end design, just like we've just talked about. Okay, let's get into a few more details. So the fourth way to survive failover, now prioritize recovery and testing. So again, the old way of recovery, think about what you'd have to do at, say, 2 a.m. on a Saturday in the case of any outage. So you'd have to get up out of bed, change, get to your car, drive to the data center, and start recovering from backups. But simply imagine if you could, that same outage, 2 a.m. on a Saturday, you could just maybe grab your iPad from your nightstand and bring back 200 servers in the right order within 15 minutes, guaranteed. Now that's the type of solution that you need to have. And then with testing, testing used to be such a hassle. You could only do it once a year. But imagine being able to do it every single day to make sure that all of your systems were up and running properly and there when you need them in the time that you need them. Now the fifth way to survive disasters is really with security and encryption. So you really need to pay attention to privacy. Now a lot of backup vendors out there simply put raw files into the cloud, but what you really need is double-blind encryption. So similar to a safety deposit box, where rather than other solutions, again, taking those raw files and sending them to the cloud, you need a military-grade encryption system. So this encryption system locally, in transit, and at rest is really the best way to ensure that data is secure. It also allows you to enable compliance with regulations such as HIPAA, PCI, Safe Harbor, Sarbanes-Oxley, and many more. So really the whole idea behind that double-blind encryption, like a safety deposit box, is that the approach is that you encrypt your data locally with a key that you have and the vendor doesn't, and then when the data gets to the data center, it's encrypted again with a key that the vendor has and you don't know. So by having those two separate keys, it dramatically lowers the chances of any attack being successful. And even if a hacker does get in, they can't decrypt the data because they don't have both keys. Okay, so let's do a quick recap of those 5 rules of DRAS, or how to survive disasters, that we just reviewed. So 1, avoid reserved infrastructure. 2 is avoid hardware-heavy solutions. 3 is design it end-to-end. 4 is push-button failover. 5 is security and encryption. So that's a quick recap. Now with that, I've definitely talked quite a bit here, so I want to hear from you again. So I'm going to launch another quick poll to hear from you guys. So I'll give everyone a minute to answer this poll here. You should see it pop up on your screen now. So this one's simply asking, when it comes to BCDR, which of these is you? A, I can fail over to a second site in under 60 minutes. B, I wish I had failover DR but can't afford it. And C, I don't think I need failover DR. Now so far everyone has answered B, I wish I had failover DR but can't afford it. And that's of course because we haven't talked about price and cost yet, and that's the next part of this presentation, so we are going to get to that. Now it looks like we have a few of you, 22% now have answered, I can fail over to a second site in under 60 minutes. Okay, but I'm also curious, can you fail over in under 15 minutes? And you can use the question tool to let me know. Robert asks, at some point, can you talk a little about testing semi-annual and what types of outputs for LOB and audit come out of that? Robert, we'll get to that in the Q&A. I'll definitely have, we're going to have a sales engineer here join us for the Q&A, so we'll talk about that. Brian says, depends. Brian, do you really want a solution that you say just depends? I might be able to get it in 15 minutes, I might not. And what does it depend on? Brian says, not really. Yeah, I agree, Brian. I think you do need a solution that you can count on. All right, let me share. So we have 60% of you who voted. I'd love to have all of you vote in this poll, but in interest of time and just wanting to be respectful of the time that we allotted for today, I'm going to go ahead and close this poll, and I'll share the results. So 78% said, I wish I had Failover DR but can't afford it. Nobody said, I don't think I need Failover DR. So I think we all realize how important this is. We realize that it's such a critical issue. It's a big problem these days. So let's really get into then the how can you afford it, how you can have an effective solution. Especially Brian here says, yeah, I'm not really sure if I have a solution that I can rely on or not. So let's get into a bit of that. Okay, so should be seeing my screen here again in just a moment. Okay. All right, great. So we got that poll closed down. So now we're just going to talk a little bit about InfraScale. Now, I mentioned early on in the webinar that InfraScale is a DRaaS company. We're using the cloud to eradicate downtime. That's our mission. And again, those of you joining us today, that's likely your mission as well. Of course, we can't prevent disasters from ever occurring, but we can mitigate the pain and disruption and get everything back on track and get and equip every company with the ability to quickly and affordably recover from any disaster, whether it be one of those large-scale disasters that we saw earlier or small-scale. All right, so taking a look at this global map here, each one of these red dots represents a business that InfraScale is currently protecting. We're protecting thousands of businesses globally with 15 geographically dispersed data centers. And again, each of these red dots, now you can see quite a bit in North America, in the UK, in Australia. Each of these dots is a business that we protect, but how do we do that? Let's take a look at exactly how. So here I'm going to show you a quick 2-minute video, and this is really showing you cloud failover with InfraScale in action. So we looked earlier at an example of, okay, a disaster happens at 2 a.m. on a Saturday. So these are the steps that you could go through at 2 a.m. on a Saturday. This is the InfraScale dashboard here. If a disaster happens, so you could simply reach over, grab your laptop or tablet. The dashboard can be accessed through any browser. So the first thing that I do here, I've already logged in and navigated to our appliance section here. I want to look at the office that's down. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go to one of the offices that's replicating to the cloud side. Okay? So some of these appliances are standalone, but some are replicating to the cloud. But I want to browse and recover files. So I click in here, and I'm going to navigate to the Cloud Boot tab. I see all the servers in that office here in the Cloud Boot tab. So what I'm going to do is simply find the server that I want to bring up, and then I am presented with this Cloud Boot wizard. So in the wizard, I first just want to pick the point from which I want to bring that server back. So I pick the most recent date, and then I want to outline my network configurations. So I decide that I want to accept traffic from RDP and SSH. And then next, I will set up a notification email when the VM's been spun up. So I set up that notification email, and then I flip over to the Active tab. So I can see that the selected VM's already been virtualized and it's already ready. And then I simply want to verify that the server is actually running. So I want to log into Windows Remote Desktop Client and connect to this particular server, and I'll log in and I'll see that I have network connectivity. And then the very last step is going to be to check that I have outbound connectivity as well. So I'm simply going to open Windows PowerShell and ping Google and verify that I have outbound connectivity. And that's really it. Of course, you're going to see that it works. But let's quickly review the whole process here. So first is just logging into the dashboard, finding the office that's impacted by the disaster, finding the server to bring up, and then simply cloud boot the server and log in and test connectivity. And that's it. You saw the whole process happen in about 2 minutes. So with the InfraScale dashboard, this is a quick snapshot here like you just saw. And it provides one unified management console. So you can access it from any browser. And from there you can view activity alerts. You can access all of your reporting and monitoring. You can monitor all of your account usage and control all of your remote deployments as well. Manage retention settings for compliance here as well. So it's one centralized location that you can access everything. And then I definitely wanted to get into a little bit about pricing and a few different comparisons, because some of you earlier mentioned that you were using Veeam, you were using Commvault, and you were talking about how you can move from that solution to a more effective and affordable solution. This is really a great example where we compared against Axient, Datto, Barracuda, and Unitrends in this particular example. I'm happy to share all this information with you as well. Now, what we looked at, is it affordable? Does it offer cloud spillover? Do you get complete coverage? Is it push-button failover? Does it have encryption and security the way that you need it? So all of these, looking at and talking about in today's presentation, we compared here. And now what you can see clearly, that all of those major vendors just simply don't stack up the way that InfraScale does. And of course, if you're looking for a really affordable solution, then there's not much competition. Because what we found in this comparison is that InfraScale is up to 70% less. And now, to be very clear, this was an apples-to-apples comparison. It was 10 terabyte appliance plus 3 years of cloud. And so with this comparison, you really do need to make sure that, again, you're looking at apples-to-apples, just the exact same side-by-side comparison. You don't want to have a comparison that's unequal. So that's also something for you to consider. Now, again, happy to share all this information with you and all of the reporting and comparisons that we did. But to quickly wrap up here and jump into the Q&A at the end of the webinar here, is just that as a wrap-up, InfraScale delivers on-demand cloud-backed DR as a service for mid-sized organizations, and we guarantee 15-minute failover, and we're 70% less than other vendors out there. So with that, we're going to jump into the Q&A, and I have our sales engineer, Aaron Jordan, joining us here. You want to say hi, Aaron?
Howdy.
So Aaron is going to be here to answer any technical questions that you guys have, anything that has come up that I wasn't able to cover just yet. But I also want to quickly leave this up here for you to see. And as the next steps, as we go into the Q&A, I want to offer a complimentary terabyte of cloud backup for all of you who've joined today. And you can take advantage of that complimentary terabyte, simply a risk-free intro to InfraScale, by typing into the question tool and letting me know that you'd like to take advantage of that, or simply by emailing me. You can email me at carla.federigo@infrascale.com. I'll pull my contact information up as well before we end after the Q&A here. And remember to get all of your questions in, because we also have that giveaway that was mentioned in the chat. So the giveaway is a free tablet, and we are going to just give that randomly to one of the participants here today. So please do jump into the Q&A. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Aaron.
Thanks for that, Carla. So I just am going through the questions that list already. I'm going to start answering the ones that I've seen, because I know some of you have asked questions as you went along, and I'll try to hit those up in a more technical manner. And then feel free to continue to send questions to me, and then I'll get to them as soon as I can. So let's see. The first one is, I think, more of a statement for Steve, from Stephen Woodward, and it says, I'm considering becoming a reseller, have clients that are often looking at draft solutions, often government sector. So that's more of a statement, but I did want to say, hey, Steve, I got you covered. We even have CJIS compliant data centers. So we've got some clients that are running top secret data back and forth. And I can't tell you all of the government agencies that back up with us, but I can tell you that their data is secure and it's compliant with even the most rigorous standards. So CJIS in class, etc. Let's see. I see people mentioning Commvault and Veeam. Commvault, we're going to destroy them in price. Veeam, functionality, right? So Veeam is really good at virtualization. They can pick up, VMware very well, actually. They've got a lot of other cool features like Insta-boot on the most recent ones. And then recently I heard they're now able to actually mount a system and pull out data. That's awesome. But we've been doing all of that for years. So, and on top of that, Veeam can only do virtual environments. We can do physical, virtual, even best. While Veeam does job-based dedupe, we do global dedupe. So anything that touches the appliance is deduped against itself, which is even cooler when you have homogeneous environments like Windows physical boxes and virtual machines and Hyper-V and virtual machines in VMware, and let's say like 4 of those are sparsed out between the different environments and they're all running Windows 2008 R2. I can dedupe out the OS data and any user data that's the same between those. And I don't know if anyone else can do that. So that's kind of where we kind of come in for against Veeam and those other like-minded clients. At some point, can you talk a little more about testing semi-annual and what types of outputs for LOB and audit comes from that? That's Robert Espinoza. So Robert, actually, we encourage you to test as often as you can. We don't have a limit, and nor should people have a limit on testing. So essentially, you can always boot up a machine in the cloud. You can boot up a cluster of machines with our boot groups. In fact, the video that Carla showed is a little out of date. We've evolved a lot since then, not just individual booting, but grabbing a cluster of machines, predetermining the resources for those boots, and just booting one thing, and then they all come up, right? And then that also will end into our orchestration that's coming, where you can predefine these machines in this order, then run this script, apply these IP addresses, ping, make sure they're talking to each other, wait for this long, etc., so that you can pre-configure everything, and then from your mobile phone hit the big red button, and even if the site is a crater, the cloud is still running, and you've got everyone back online, right? And that, by the way, connections come in various forms. Carla outlined the direct connection via private or public IP. You can also use, and which we're actually recommending, is site-to-site VPN. So we have both IPsec tunnels that you can have an agent that's pre-baked with your connectivity information, and then you can just hand that out to the users. They install that, or you can use an MSI tool to install that for you. Then all they have to do is, connect as usual when you boot the machines, and then what do you know? Everything is already pre-configured, so it just works, right? And that's what the answer should be. It just works. Regarding auditing, just submit a support ticket. Within 48 hours, you'll get a questionnaire request about who you are, information on you, and then we can actually have you sign an NDA, and then we'll send you everything on the auditing checks, etc. And you can frame that or do whatever you want with it, so that when you are audited, you can put out reports showing that you're backing up, recovering. You can keep track of who's doing what, when and where, and also these auditing reports show that the data centers are legit, more specifically that they fall in with the requirements that you would need, like HIPAA and Sarbanes-Oxley, SAS 70, etc. So we encourage that, actually. We'll even sign and recommend business associate agreements as per HIPAA regulations and other governing bodies. So we're completely open for that and actually recommend that you do these things. Let's see. Brian Ricci asks, can store data for 7 years for clients that need to keep 7 years of data? Absolutely. Our cloud can store as much as you need, and this actually goes into our cloud spillover. You can actually have an appliance that just stores a month's worth of data on that machine or various machines, and then spill the rest over to the cloud for, to the end of the world, right? You can have all that data backed up. Even cooler is it's not only machine to machine, so I can say these machines can stay around longer locally and have shorter cloud retentions, or are in the local machine shorter and have longer cloud retentions, but these other machines never delete, etc. Because let's face it, not all machines are created equal. Your SQL servers are by far more important than your Active Directory server, even though those are both important. So we can give you that flexibility to keep what you want, where you want it, for as long as you want it, and then boot those as well in the order that you want to boot them. Let's see. Someone says, my organization is currently laying down, this is Robert Espinoza again, currently laying down infrastructure, storage, and network to move to an active and active data center separated by 25 miles. How can InfraScale help me if I'm active? Actually, you can deploy multiple appliances, Site A and Site B, and you can essentially become your own cloud. So you can have one site fail over to a secondary site. And there are a lot of perks to that, but the best news is simply because you decide to be a cloud because you've already got the infrastructure doesn't mean that you lose features. So everything that our cloud offers, you can keep and run in your own data center if you wanted to do that. So more power to you. So those options are completely available. And even better, you can say, this client, I want to go to InfraScale's cloud because I just don't have any more room on my data center. But these premier clients, they're my tier 1 clients. I want them in my data center. I want to have more hands-on. Not to say that our data center would be any less significant than yours, but the fact that you can decide what you want to do and where to put your data on a machine-to-machine basis. So we're not going to force you to do all in one eggs in one basket. Is your pricing by server, agent, or site? I only care about storage, Keith. So all the features, booting, DR, bare metal, file folder, SQL plugins, Exchange plugins, all that goody stuff is all included in the product at the price. So we're just looking at cost of the ownership and then cost of the cloud. Those are the two things, and you can get more information from the sales rep, but it's actually a very simple metric. You know out of the gate. I mean, we can show you what the price are, and you can do your own math without having to have one of our salespeople involved. The point. This is Samir from Ginstore Systems Incorporated. We would like to make a complete solution with hardware as we are an IT solutions provider. How do we get help for the evolution of the software, and where can I put my MTL engineer team with your technical team? So there's a lot of things you can do. So we have our support. It's always available, email, live chat, ticket, everything you've got available. You can use your own integrated ticketing systems like SNMP, using SNMP, so like ConnectWise, Kaseya, LabTech, Zendesk, all have ticketing systems that would integrate in by simply using either APIs or just simply routing email traffic for inbound message reporting, etc. But there's a lot of ways you can integrate the products so that you can make sure that your team is on top of it, receiving the notifications. In fact, we also offer unlimited training, so that we'll train and then just have your other support guys just be grunts answering tickets. So you don't need to train everyone. But if you want to, we'll train every single one of them as many times as they need. Even if a new feature comes out, if you hire a new guy, whatever, we'll take care of that. So we'll help you integrate the solution into what you're already doing to ensure that you're following best practices, you're making good money, and you're not concerned, does it work? You're just concerned, where's my next target? Keith also asks, is this solution a one-stop shopping solution, software, application, cloud storage? Yes. Keith, I want you to go in and I want you to, well, I mean, you could, you don't need to, but I want you to rip out all your backup, DR, and cloud solutions. I can handle it. You don't need eFolder for your backup with Veeam as your backup solution, with Commvault picking up the extra hardware. I got it all. I can cover everything. Connectivity. Do most customers need to buy a dedicated DWDM or similar high bandwidth connection? And that's a Steve Woodward question. I'm glad you asked to talk about our DDFS system. So we are sensitive about data transfer because we have a lot of clients that are outside of the United States. In the States, the only concern is speed, right? But outside of the States, we're concerned with not only speed, but how much you can send, because you have to pay for each bandwidth or each gigabyte, right? So the way we work is we have something called DDFS AR. What it does is Site A will actively speak to Site B. And I say Site B because that may be your colo, that may be another data center, that may be us, right? And so Site A will say, I'm about to send this to you. And Site B says, stop, stop, stop. I know that you just did a fresh backup of a 2012 server, but guess what? I've already got a 2012 server over here, so you don't need to send the OS data. So we're cutting out a bunch of junk. What that means is I've deployed this on sites with 1 to 5 megabits per second, and after the initial seed, which we can help you with, we do have seeding solutions that are easily implemented. You don't have to worry about sending tons of data over. It's actually very simple. So you're just sending change blocks or only new data, higher infrastructure, right? So we save you a lot of bandwidth and time. So Michael's asking, where are the data centers, and can you tell me about your data sovereignty? So our data centers, we have 16 worldwide actually. Carla mentioned 15, but we've got 5 in the US, 1 in Canada, 1 in the United Kingdom, 1 in India, 1 in Kiev, 1 in South Africa, 1 in Ireland, 1 in Germany, 1 in Brazil, and there are a few others that I can't mention because they are CGIS compliant, which means you can't know where they're at because then that would blow CGIS. So that would basically give you a ton of our data centers. Now, speaking of sovereignty, if you are in Canada, we're going to assume your data has to stay in Canada because, you know, your laws say they have to. Same with a lot of European countries, Ireland and UK, they have the same thing. Even though all of our data centers are safe harbor compatible, which means you could technically store it in our data center, the answer is still, we'll put it wherever you want to put it. Because not only can we use our clouds, remember, your infrastructure can also be a cloud. So anywhere you want it. And again, speaking of sovereignty, so not just land-based, but also Sarbanes-Oxley, SAS-70, SSAE-16, Safe Harbor, we've got all of them, and you can always request an audit report. Michelle asks, do you have 24/7 support? Yeah, so 24/7 stateside, phone support, ticketing, email, live chat, all of the above. It's all available to you as part of the service, right? So you're going to have our competitors charging you extra for updates and extra for support and extra for level 1 support and extra for, we don't do that. That's nonsense. It's a waste of your time. We cover everything soup to nuts, support the hardware maintenance and warranty with the software, everything included in the package. And we have James asking, I'm a reseller, is it rebrandable? So we have 2 aspects to our solution. So we have a direct-to-cloud that's going to be able to back up all your endpoints, mobile devices, etc. That is completely 100% rebrandable, along with the dashboard. Now with the appliance, that isn't rebrandable. That actually is more hidden than anything because the boxes are little black boxes that don't say InfraScale, but when you boot into them or when you log in, those do have our name on it. Though take heart because, number 1, you would do all the management because you can remotely push updates, etc., recoveries for the clients without having to go on site, etc. So there's no need for them to go in there. But that is minimally branded. Dedupe is another question that I'm getting from Dean. The answer is yes, 2 to 10 times guaranteed, but we can usually get more. So it really depends on what you're backing up, right? Because if we're talking files and folders, then that's going to do really good dedupe because it's just flat files and folders. It's easily broken down. If we're talking audio, video, music, that's already encrypted as much as we can do. So that's going to basically just look for other instances of that same file across your network. And then if it does find something, that'll dedupe. But by and large, it's 2 to 10 times. But the more you back up and your retention policies will dictate how much dedupe you get. All right, so we have another one from Cindy who asked, endpoints, geolocate, remote wipe. So our direct-to-cloud actually has not only geolocation, so you can track down to an actual building where the device is, but you can also remotely wipe data in the event that it's stolen. That requires additional permissions, by the way, that you can't just willy-nilly do that. But also things like you know, pushing policies to change them on the fly, etc. So you can definitely get extra features for your endpoints to track them, see where they're at, and do a little extra things.
And just a reminder, sorry to interrupt in the Q&A here, Aaron, but for those of you who want to take advantage of that complimentary terabyte of cloud backup, just let us know in the question tool. Just say, I'd love that free terabyte, or you can email me at carla.federigo@infrascale.com. So maybe what I'll do is switch the slide over so you can see my contact info. And then let's go back to see if are there any more questions coming through, Aaron, or?
I don't see anything else. I was just trying to play catch up, and okay. I think the last one was Steve Woodward's. I don't see anything else. I guess last call for alcohol. If you guys have anything else, let me know.
Okay, and I did say that we were going to do that giveaway to whoever participated the most. So let me go ahead and calculate. Let me just scroll through the questions here. So hold tight for just 1 minute, and then we'll be doing the giveaway here. Okay, so congratulations, Stephen W. Thank you so much for all of your participation today. We are going to be tablet. And thank you everybody for participating today and just for taking time out of your schedule to be here. Thanks, Erin, for being here to answer all those questions. And with that, we're going to go ahead and close down the webinar for today. Again, thanks everyone for joining, and we look forward to talking with you more in the future, and we look forward to working with you. Thanks.